Morning, everybody, and welcome to this is session 2, which is usually the session that we introduce you to a new idea, maybe a new way of working, something that's interesting, so you can sit back and relax a little bit and take what you'd like from this presentation. Some of it you're going to find useful. Do we have more power as a collective than we do as individuals? And I think the big thing that comes out of what we heard this morning was the regional nature of this practice of poaching, wildlife trade, and so on. So can we as data journalists form a community that's going to actually raise our ability to actually do something and improve our practices? And we probably at that point now where we can reflect on it, or do we want to go on our own and just try and whittle away at a system which is actually another community of practice? It's the community of poachers or wildlife traders. So they form a community of practice. Likewise do car thieves, they all syndicates, drug leaders, and so on. So this is where this idea comes from, and let's look at it in a way which might add value, but if you feel it doesn't, then you can leave it behind. Okay, so is there one for data wranglers, and maybe should there be one? So what is a community of practice? It's quite important to look at the idea. It's not something that has just popped into our minds. It's been around for quite a while, and it's been extremely effective. And you see a picture there of the two inspiring people who've developed this idea, Jean Lave and Etienne Wenger, and they've done amazing work with ambulance drivers, with all sorts of practices by working with the community of practice idea. So just quickly, communities of practice are groups of people who share a concern, think about yourselves, a set of problems, or a passion about a topic, and who deepen their knowledge and expertise in this area by interacting on an ongoing basis. So, is this a platform for interaction? How will you take it forward when you've got your certificate? Is there a need for that kind of interaction with yourselves? Okay, these people do not necessarily work together every day, again, but they meet because they find value in their interaction. So maybe you have to meet virtually because we spread across a region, which is very challenging for a community of practice because you don't see each other and work on exactly the same thing all the time. And as they spend time together, they typically share information. I'm thinking of your database, your insights in terms of understanding your database, and advice on how you can improve it. They help each other to solve problems. That's a community of practice. Okay, what does it do? This is quite important because without understanding that, it's just another one of those jargony terms. One of the important things is it moves away from individual learning and skills development. In other words, we're not just trying to develop skills of data wranglers out there and have thousands of skilled data wranglers, but it focuses on how they can share and work more effectively as a group and how they can improve their practice together. So there's all sorts of things around that. And of course, WildEye is exactly a tool that groups of data wranglers can share and have far more powerful impact further down the road. So there's 3 components: an area of knowledge, in this case, data journalism, community of people who care about the domain. It could be yourselves and maybe some other interested parties, like hopefully government departments, but at this stage, maybe they're not included. They're more of a hindrance to your community of practice. And then the shared practice, and in this case, it's wildlife crime reporting. So all of those 3 things can be developed with a little bit of effort. And sequence is everything. If you start at the wrong point and work backwards, your community of practice gets confused. People feel it's not worth working for them. But if you start at the right end, you start to build a lot of power within your group. So what have we tried to do in this course? And I won't dwell on this, but you can think about this in terms of the final shared learning event. When you talk about practices, there are things you can do, and usually they require skills, and you have to spend time practicing. It's like riding a bicycle. You don't develop that practice without getting on and practicing and falling off. So with any particular skill or practice, there's what I can't do. Then there's what I can do with help. And then there's what I can do. So we don't want to spend time developing those skills in the group that you can do. So Sean, you might be great at data wrapper, Callistus is better at something else. So all those things that you can do, that's fine. But what are the things that we need to be able to do better with assistance? And I think that's what Oxpeckers has tried to do. Their support group program is there to help us refine those skills or practices. So what actually skills are we talking about? Let's have a look. So I've broken this down a little for you, and then you can agree or disagree, but maybe it's going to be useful in your final presentation. So data journalism as a practice. Right, first thing I heard was you were getting data. And then I put a picture of somebody climbing a mountain because it seems like the really, really slog work is getting the data. It's really what demotivates you, demoralizes you. Once you've got all those little data points, and I've heard you, Roxanne, always wants lots and lots of data points, but there they are. You do something with them. You put them into a computer system, a wild eye or an Excel spreadsheet, but you've gone about stuff like scraping the internet. You've looked at open access. Callistus was telling us about. Some of you, I don't know, might have even paid for information. So you add to your data set through that. And then you hit roadblocks where you need a right of access kind of approach, which means you try to use the law to get more data, to get better data, to get inaccessible data. And then sometimes some of that data has got to go to the dustbin because, as we've heard, it's not clean, it's not clear, and it gives the wrong picture. And that's the problem with data, is that if you're not working with the data, you end up with misinformation in a proper way. And we know that that does lots of damage in terms of the scientific world. We looked at tools of the trade. So we looked at Excel. We looked at the things that can help us with the literacy. Going further along this understanding data as we try to put pieces of the puzzle together. So can that happen? How well are you doing at that? And then, of course, we heard about today is once you got to that task, you can tell the story. So you can obviously share with us, you think the getting data, mountain climbing is more of a slog than, say, getting to the exciting part where you can assemble stories and match the data to different pieces of this regional puzzle. It all takes time and it all takes skill, and different people in the group are better at different parts of this. Right, on we go to the last part of the practice, which was delivering the data. And we touched on this. We didn't spend a lot of time in the program, but it's combining the data with stories. And I think you can use the same data sets to get different stories, or you can use different stories to work the other way around. You can use data-driven applications. You've heard about how you present it in a different visualization. Sean was talking about use of data applications this morning. And then the visualization also part of that. And then, of course, what was very nice was Callistus talking about the issue of who is your audience. You know, is it decision makers in Parliament? Is it a particular group in the community that needs to do something about it? Or is it going to court or something like that? So obviously you add those all, and this is really a summary of what we've looked at in terms of the program. Basically the practice of data journalism and the 3 steps along the way to getting that to fit together. So different parts of this practice need to be built. But as I said earlier, it's the sequence. If you start in the wrong point, you frustrate yourself because your data is too poor or you don't have enough points. And I think this is what Fiona and Roxanne have been saying to us. Let's make sure we've got a strong data set in that Excel sheet so that when we get to the communicating with communities, we've got convincing stuff. So that's it in a nutshell. So before we have there's a little bit of time for discussion. I've gone fairly quickly, so not a lot of time to go into detail here. Key points: practices consist of many different activities. Along that sequence pathway, you have to have different skills or else you get stuck. Earlier point, many of these steps in the process require social engagement, so you don't get demoralized or discouraged or lose your direction. So sometimes, yes, the social's there, but also the technical. If you can complete this pathway, you've more or less gone through the data wrangling a set of activities making up that practice. Okay, so this is what a community practice is built on. a sense of urgency and purpose, right? Is there a need to do these things better? Can we rely on each other to improve? Or do we need to look elsewhere for these skills? Generally, there's a feeling of interdependence, so that we work together, that we can't do this job without at least some input from our fellows. Members organize themselves around opportunities for interacting and assisting. So in other words, if you don't go online virtually once every 3 months or so on, then the community of practice won't emerge. But if you do work together, like Sean was saying, can we write a group story? Then there is the potential for that. There's always a degree of confidence that working together will benefit all. So in other words, if we work together, we're going to have a better outcome than if we stick around or work on our own. And then acceptance systems for interaction generally support the thing. So we've got WhatsApp groups, we've got WildEye, we've got regular meetings or platforms or professional opportunities. These are all things that can actually function to support us in terms of that interaction. If they don't exist, well, then there is no interaction. And then willingness to learn and make mistakes and learn within the group is critical. So if you make a mistake and you try and hide it from the group, it doesn't improve the learning within that group. We should all be open and say, look, I got this wrong. This is a mess. I'm not doing very well at that. So that was really what that was about, is to say, if we self-reflect, can we then offer a better product down the road?